Good morning, everybody. Um, Wednesday, midweek, halfway there. If you look for the weekend, that is. Anyway, I see the mix is all the talk and all the rage of the town today. So, um, to address the elephant in the room, um, my viewpoints have not swayed, changed, or moved from last night because I genuinely believe, both by what I read and by what he said, that the viewpoint that the hierarchy that he puts in place cannot be superseded by man. I will continue to believe that. The things that he put in place cannot be superseded by man, nor does it need man's approval, and it doesn't need man to okay it or to support it. It is what it is. So there. That's all I got to say about that. It's not my rules, not my regulation. That's on him. Anybody got a problem with that, take it up with him, not with me. I'm just saying what he said. What he said stands. If it doesn't stand, then obviously you don't fully believe that he's who he says he is. Speaking of which, we will discuss the man himself this morning. And make sure, tell me if you guys can hear the background music. If not, let me know. If you can hear it, let me know if you can hear it. And it's not too loud. I'm trying to keep it just under there. If you can't hear it, let me know so I can turn it up a little bit. But if you can hear it and it's too loud, let me know. Okay. I'll start with this verse. For what if some did not believe? Will their unbelief make the faithfulness of God without effect? Certainly not. Indeed, let God be true and every man a liar. Now, we will be fully going through the majority of Romans 3. But it's not going to be the type of faithfulness conversation that you're used to. It is not the type of faithfulness conversation that you're used to. See, when we hear about God's faithfulness, we hear about his blessing simultaneously. We hear about his goodness simultaneously, like what he gives. That's what it is. We hear about what he gives. What he gives. That's his faithfulness. How he blesses. How he's always there. We never equate his faithfulness to his judging the world. We never want to make him faithful in carrying out the punishment that he set forth for sin. We never talk about his faithfulness in punishment. We talk about his faithfulness in bringing this and giving you that and blessing you with this and blessing you with that and getting you out of trouble and getting you into the gates of heaven and get. Always about us. His faithfulness always seems to land on our benefit. We never harp on the fact that his faithfulness to his own word means that he will judge the world one day. And that judgment is going to be severe. We are not talking about a slap on the wrist. We're not talking about a slight miscommunication. We're talking about severe punishment, permanent punishment. And he will be faithful to carry that through. We don't want to talk about that, though. You talk about that, then you're a grim preacher. You're bringing dark news to people. What happened to the love of God? Yeah, what happened to the love of God? What did happen to the love of God? Let's talk about that. Romans 3. What advantage then has the Jew, or what is the profit of circumcision? Much in every way, chiefly because to them were committed the oracles of God. For if some did not believe, for what if some did not believe? Will their unbelief make the faithfulness of God without effect? Certainly not. Indeed, let God be true and every man a liar. That you may be justified in your words and may overcome when you are judged. But if our righteousness demonstrates the righteousness of God, what shall we say? Is God unjust who inflicts wrath? I speak as a man. Certainly not, for then how will God judge the world? Remember, we spoke some time ago about how men put their ideals of God on God and run with it as though that's God? That's this verse. See, what men want to proffer to you as the way God operates is 98% of the time not what God operates like. We want to see God do for us, give, 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 bless, bless, bless. All the while, we do nothing in return. And I'm not saying that our salvation is based on works, but we don't turn to Him, we don't depend on Him, we don't pass everything through Him, but we want everything that He offers. When the offering things that He's giving is because of our following. You'll get the basics, you'll get water, just like when living in a home. You get water, lights, rain. You get all that. That's naturally part of living. I don't consider those blessings. I consider that part of what is there. I'm sorry, but I don't consider them blessings. To me, they just prove God's existence. And to some, you might say, well, that's a blessing to me. Good, then it's a blessing to you. I'm saying to me. I consider children a blessing, marriage a blessing. Being able to tell people what I'm telling people now, that's a blessing. He blesses the just and the unjust, right? With rain and water. I just don't consider it a blessing the way people consider blessings. I have a much higher threshold for blessings. And I consider them much more sacred than just rain. Again, just me. Just me. Not negating the awesomeness of waking up to sunshine or waking up to rain. I'm not discounting the awesomeness of it. But He sends that to everybody. Salvation is a blessing that very few will take advantage of. Let's continue. For if the truth of God has increased through my lie to His glory, why am I also still judged as a sinner? And why not say, let us do evil that good may come, as we are slanderously reported, and as some affirm that we say, their condemnation is just. In other words, if I lie about something to do with God, why am I still considered a bad guy if it's increasing His righteousness in the process of me lying? You know that whole continue in sin, grace may abound business? Exact same premise. You continue, and this is an excuse that a lot of people use, you continue doing what you're doing in order to prove God's faithfulness to redeem you. And you begin this cycle of, I do wrong, I ask forgiveness, and I'm exemplifying God even more because He forgives me. You're not increasing, and your actions don't increase or decrease anything to do with God's faithfulness, anything to do with God's love. Nor does Him showing it increase or decrease it. It may increase it or decrease it to your vision, but it doesn't affect him in any way. He just gives. When he says he doesn't change, it's for everything. Everything. What then? Are we any better than they? Not at all, for we have previously charged both Jews and Greeks that they are all under sin. He goes on to quote an Old Testament, for there is none righteous, no, not one. There is none who understands. There's none who seeks after God. They have all turned aside. They have become unprofitable, and no one who does good. There's no one who does good, not one. Their throat is an open tomb. With their tongues they have practiced deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are their ways, and the way of peace they have not known, for there is no fear of God in their eyes. Now, we know that whatever the law says, it says to those who are under the law. I'm going to read that again. We know that whatever the law says, it says to those who are under the law, that every mouth may be stopped and all the world may become guilty before God. That's what the law is for. Therefore, by the deeds of the law, no flesh will be judged in his sight. For by the law is the knowledge of sin. Whatever the law says, it says to those under the law. The whole world may become guilty before the Lord because of the knowledge of the law. We do not live under the law. The law was an aiding tool to get us to see our sin. Law was present for us to see our sin. We had to weigh our actions against something hard and fast, the law. Once we were measured against the law and found wanting, there was only one atonement to be made for us and our transgression against the law. Now remember, this is about his faithfulness. And I said that his faithfulness has to do both with his provision and his punishment. Provision and punishment. The law introduced to us our lack. We had to see the law first to realize why the sacrifice of Jesus was so great. The law demanded blood. It demanded an atonement. It demanded a whole lot from us that we could not give. It demanded perfection. It could not be obtained by us. There is no way that we could fulfill the law. We would be in eternal punishment by just the law. So all these clowns running around talking about the law is it, and make sure you follow the laws, the rules, and the rules, and rules, and commandments. All those clowns that do that, they are completely fine, because you know why? They live under the law. I want to see them escape the judgment, living as though they can accommodate the law. Have at it. Fulfill every law you can find. Break just one, though. See what happens. Break just one time. Just break one. Impossible to just break one. You're going to break a whole lot more than one. I want to see a bull, a goat, a lamb. Fix that for you. We are no longer under the law. The law was necessary, though, for us to see our sin and weigh it against it. Once we saw that, and then we turn our eyes to what Jesus showed up for, was to fulfill said law's requirements of our death, mankind, their death, you will understand more fully why the importance of stepping into his life is needed. A lot of people need and keep the idea of Christianity man-made. There's no mention of Christian in the Bible. But then they also want to make a big deal of Christ dying for his. And then they also want to make a big deal of you becoming a follower of Christ. When you tell them that that's what Christian really means, they still say it's man-made. What they're really looking for is control of the narrative. They are looking for control of the narrative. Jesus gave his life for all. If man can step in and say who the all is, they think they win. They have a monopoly. He died for all. Every last one of us. There is no sin too egregious that he cannot cover. There is no sin too egregious that he cannot cover. Strike the one that he says that is unforgivable. And like I said before, that's for him to decide what that actually is. If I'm following him, I won't even attempt to find out what that is. I will never, ever, ever speak ill of the Holy Spirit, ever. So there's no way for me to transgress or even blaspheme it. I won't speak ill about it. Not me, not ever. Why take that chance? I'm just not going to test that water. For those who want to test the water, just understand that he is faithful in the punishment he's issuing for that. I just advise you to think before you think, okay? Here comes the fun part. But we know the righteousness of God apart from the law is revealed, being witnessed by the law and the prophets, even the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ to all and all who believe. For there is no difference. We have all sinned and fall short of the glory of God, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus, whom God set forth as a propitiation by his blood through faith to demonstrate his righteousness. There, because of his forbearance, God has passed over the sins that were previously committed to demonstrate at the present time his righteousness, that he might be just and the justifier of one who has faith in Jesus. Do you remember the doorposts and the blood in Egypt? All who were covered by that smear of blood on their doorpost were passed over by the angel of death. Remember that. Same concept. The wrath that was going to be visited upon man was inevitable. He sent his son to offer the blood to cover your doorpost so that his righteousness was assuaged. This is the value and the true meaning of the cross, which is why people avoid it at all costs and ignore it at all costs. Because in doing so and acknowledging the cross, you then have to turn the mirror inwards and see your problem, see your location. That's a problem for most. That is a problem for most. So what is boasting then? It is excluded. By what law? Of works? No, but by the law of faith. Therefore, we conclude that a man is justified by faith apart from the deeds of the law. Or he is the God of the Jews, or is he the God of Jews only? Is he not also the God of the Gentiles? Yes, of the Gentiles also. Since there is one God who will justify the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised through faith. Do we then make void the law through faith? Certainly not. On the contrary, we establish the law. Do you get what he's saying there? Do you get what he's saying there? Do you realize how ridiculously profound this little statement is? Do you realize how valuable faith is? Since there is one God who will justify the circumcised and uncircumcised through faith, do we then make void the law through faith? Certainly not. On the contrary, we establish the law. The law is fully embodied through the faith that we express in God. That faith only comes by us acknowledging our state and accepting the new position he has. There is zero room for you in his kingdom. What do I mean by that? There is zero room for you in his kingdom. There is room for the new you, but not for you. You understand me? We are then placed as the example of what fulfillment of law looks like. In us standing in the sacrifice, in us standing in the salvation that he offered, in us standing in that new life, that is us establishing the law in reality. We are now standing in the fulfillment of the law through Jesus. That is massive. Prior to that, the law could only condemn us about our action, about our state. And that is where the law leaves you. The law leaves you in a location of despair. You're just there. You're lost. The blood of Christ, however, gives you a new life that does not get judged by the law. It is the embodiment of all the law fulfilled. Which is why you can indeed live the kind of life he's asking you to live. Because it's no longer you living it, it's him. All the things that the law required of us, all the perfection, all the rules, all the regulations, are completely and utterly fulfilled in the life of Christ. And you are invited to live that life. You are required to live it once you've entered into that covenant with him. Do you realize how big that is? Do we really grasp what that is all about? Okay, let me put it in perspective for you. A man gets arrested for murder. And the only thing keeping him from going to jail by law is if somebody else comes forward and takes his place in prison. He's a murderer, though. Somebody steps forward who happens to be a family member of the person murdered, comes forward during his trial and says, I will serve his time. And the judge will look at him and say, but you didn't commit any crime. No. And it was your family member that got killed. Yeah. And you're going to go do the time for him? Yeah. And he walks free. He walks free. You expunge anything that had to do with him committing this crime. I did it. I'm going. On record, it'll show I paid the price. And that man gets up. They take the handcuffs off of him. And he walks out a free man. People that see him and knew him will say, he's a murderer. The law says he's not. The law says we already have somebody that is in jail for that crime. That man that you're looking at is a free man by virtue of who's in jail. So whatever man sees is inconsequential to the man's actual state. His actual state is free. However, if that man keeps living like he's not free, the sacrifice of that person will be in vain. I mean, they still had the sacrifice given, but it'd be in vain. He just continues willy-nilly like nothing happened, like he never got arrested, and he keeps doing what he did before. There'll be no more sacrifice for him. It'll be no more. He will go to jail the next time. That is salvation in a nutshell. You are walking free today because of one very important thing, and that is the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. No matter what men see, no matter who knew you before, no matter what they thought of you prior to this point in your life before knowing Christ, is inconsequential. By the law that he came to fulfill, we are free. I'm assuming you mean Diwali. I don't know what Denali way. There's nothing against fasting. In fact, the Bible encourages it. He encourages it. The benefit to fasting is that you test your body's limits to go without the things that distract us. And it could be multiple ways to fast. It's not just food. Some people fast from entertainment. Some people fast from socializing. Some people fast from certain types of food. Some people fast from all kinds of food. Some people go on only water. There are certain vices in your life that you can say, okay, look, I need to take a break from that particular activity because it's distracting me from my journey with God. That's one way to fast. Get rid of it. The other reason for fasting is to hear God more clearly. You take some time and put away every bit of distraction that you can find. Put them all away. And you take that time to just be. It's not meditation. You remove all the obstacles that could possibly be in your way of you communicating with God effectively. And you directly make time. You directly make time for God, for him to speak, for him to move. And for people who out there who say that God doesn't talk to you anymore, then stop listening. Then that's good for you. If he doesn't talk to you, that's on you. That's completely on you. If he don't talk to you, then he don't talk to you. But don't tell me that he doesn't talk. He may not impart anything new to his word, but he will indeed talk to you to explain his word. I was very disappointed when I heard Vodi Bacham say that God doesn't talk to nobody today. You see, the law can get to even to the most powerful people. The people that you consider stalwarts in the Bible and knowing it and knowing God, stalwarts will tell you some of the most ridiculous things that God don't talk to people today. Man will always try to find a way to limit what God can do, even though he says it directly. He says it that he does. He doesn't. So about the fasting, and it does kind of lend into this topic today. With fasting, if you want to see a true movement, sit with yourself for a minute and see how much time you spend doing a certain activity. I'm not saying good or bad, just an activity. See whether or not you use that activity as an escape from talking to God. If you use it as a crutch for talking to God, or if you consider it talking to God. Sit a bit, try and contemplate that. See if it's something that you can even forsake and use that time that you were doing that to talk to God. That's a fast. That too is a fast. The real purpose of it is not to say I fasted. The real purpose of it is to get your mind cleared enough from the stuff of the world to hear God clearly. God's faithfulness in that is that he said he would. He would hear and answer. That's talking. Let us never forget that God is still just. There is supposed to be a reverent and sincere fear of God. You should indeed be afraid. And I mean that in all sincerity, because of who he is. I see people with pet tigers. The tiger loves on them and plays, and big old paws come over and they're petting the tiger's head and putting their hand in the tiger's mouth. And let's not forget that it's still a tiger. It's still a tiger. Go against the tiger in a certain way, and the tiger itself will show back up. All the petting, it's a tiger. There should be an innate fear because of what you know the tiger can do to not push the tiger. God is still the one who can destroy both body and soul. He controls the end from the beginning. That should be for every human being something you should be fearful of, because he's faithful to fulfill that. But in our fear, he directs it. While we know that he is capable of it, we also know that he has made an exemption for many who will take it. In his justice, he's made both a way to be punished and a way to be saved from punishment. And that is up to you. But he is faithful to fulfill both ends of that bargain, both to burn you in hell forever or to have you in his presence forever. He will fulfill both. And he will have zero problem casting you into hell for disobedience. He will have zero problem doing it because he is also 100% just. He won't have to second guess himself because it's wrong. He will do what has to be done. He's faithful. He's faithful in that. Let us not forget that at all. So, when speaking of God's faithfulness, do not forget the one part of Him that caused men of old to fall to their knees in respect and awe. Never forget that this is the same man, and I don't mean it in terms of physical, the same person that flooded the earth, that parted the sea, that spoke in a tunnel of fire, that spoke through a tunnel of wind, that lit a bush on fire and it didn't burn. Same person. We are talking about a big deal here. Your awe and reverence for God is based in the fear of who He is. The love and appreciation of God comes in knowledge of what He did, even being who He is. He didn't have to. They say love compelled Him. Love forced Him to find a way. Because He is love. He can't force Himself to be that way. Whatever He does out of His own volition. That was the path He took. Men want to relegate it to a bunch of behavioral practices. Eat a certain type of food. Behave a certain way to prove. See, what they do is they put the action as proof of their location with God, when your location in God will birth actions. Your location will birth the action that He requires. Not the action will drag you to a place that He desires. That's just hypocrisy at that point. But when you are in relationship, all of your actions spill out from that relationship. They become a natural part of what you do and who you are. I don't have to force it. I don't have to be a certain thing with somebody and then a different person. I don't have to be. I can be one way all the time. All the time. All the time. When you dwell in the presence of the Most High, there is see how when Moses came down and his face was just brilliant you can tell that he was in the presence of God? That is exactly what should take place when you've been in the presence of God every day. There's not necessarily a super glow on your face, but it should be seen. People should be able to tell. Not by my actions. They should just be able to tell that there's something different about that person. My ex-father-in-law, still consider him my father-in-law. He just lost his wife suddenly a couple of days ago, Saturday. Wonderful woman. They never judged me to the point that I could say that I deserve to be judged. for who I was when I was with their daughter. I can tell you this much, that by man's account, they would have all reasons, all justified reasons to lay me low. They would have every justification to do it by law. And they didn't. In fact, when everything was settled and done, they prayed for nothing more than my spiritual growth, that I would find God in a real way, and that my relationship with God would become who I was. They prayed for that in front of me and when I wasn't there. I was fully aware of what they were praying. And they did not waver in their expression of what they prayed. Why? Because they didn't do it because they felt, oh, he needs to change. They did that because of where they were already at. They were constantly, and I knew this about them, and I know this about him now, my father. They were constantly before the throne. Always. I always knew them to be before the throne. Without fail, they were before the throne. And now that his wife is gone, I see him being the exact same person. There is no doubt that God loves him because he lost his wife all of a sudden. None of that sets into his mind. It never crossed the man's mind. He prayed. He thanked God for the years he had. That is the true embodiment for me of a relationship with God. That turmoil, hardship, pain, anger could try and show up at your door, and it has zero room to fit in your home. It doesn't have a room because you filled it with everything to do with God. Anger has no room. Despair and pain because you lost your loved one is going to be natural, but no blaming of God, no wishing for himself to die. None of that sets in. Why? Because God's nature pervades this man. I'm telling you now, I have yet to meet another human being like him. He's different. He's different. And it's not because of the person type he is, it's because of who he gave his life to. He's an example to me that if you live your life with God the way it's supposed to be lived, it'll be shown out to people whether you want it to be shown or not. You'll be preaching whether you want to or not. And for people that say, oh, I lost my faith in God when this and this happened, and you didn't have faith in God, you had faith in the blessings that he gave you, that he gives to everyone else. You put your entire version of God in what you were getting. And when you didn't get what you thought you should get, you lost faith in God. You turned your back on religion. You were not, and have never been following God. You were hanging on for the blessing. Because he told you right up the top that if they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. He said this to you. He said it was coming. He told you all this was going to happen. It's not news, okay? This is not new stuff. If you pick up your cross and you follow me into this new life, people are going to hate you for it, and some will even put you to death for it. Just get ready for it. It's going to happen. It happened to the apostles. It happened to the prophets. It's going to happen to you. We are not here to please men. We're not here to try and assuage them. We're not here to make them feel good about the way they live. That's not us. We are not here to try and make them feel accommodated. The law itself, introducing them to that, is their condemnation. The only way to get out from under that condemnation is to get into the blood, where the law is fulfilled. It is that simple. If you ain't in the blood, I'm sorry. Truth is this. We are, if nothing else, if nothing else from what I said today, please take this to heart. The God you serve is faithful in everything he says that he will do. The God we serve is faithful in everything he says he's going to do. And I mean everything. If that means destroying the earth, it means destroying the earth. If it means putting people into a lake of fire, that's what he's going to do. If it means separation forever from the God of the earth, and that's what it is. He is faithful to do that. On the flip side, he's also very faithful to let you into the kingdom when you accept his son. And he's 100% faithful to save you. But do not get it twisted that he is two different entities. And one is an Old Testament God, and one is a New Testament God. And the Old Testament God is filled with wrath, and the New Testament one is filled with love. Let's follow the New Testament one. He is not that God. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Which means the same God that burned Sodom and Gomorrah to the ground is the same God we serve today. The same God that flooded the earth, and the same God that drowned all of Pharaoh's armies is the same God that's active and moving today. Same God. No change, no different. Whoever he seems fit to smite to the floor, he feels deemed right to smite to the floor. I'm going to say something that may seem a little bit striking. If tomorrow God deems it necessary to wipe out half the planet, he's completely justified in doing it. Completely justified in everything he does, he's justified. Why does God allow suffering? Because he can. Why does God allow cancer? Because he can. Because cancer isn't bigger than him. And cancer is temporary. And he knows that. The end result, if you know God and have cancer, is that you get to meet him. The end goal, if you're terminally ill and you know God, is that you get to meet him. Nothing's bigger than him. So blame him for what you want. Feel free. But maybe, just maybe, try and think about your state. Think about your state. Would you save you? If he would save you, what would you require of yourself to be saved? He's only requiring you that you take his son's blood. He didn't even ask you to climb up on the cross and get flogged and stabbed. Didn't ask you. Tomorrow is going to be a very, for me at least, a more profound one for me. And I'll tell you why. But life through the Spirit is a topic tomorrow. Life through the Spirit. You've heard Corey and I talk about it often. About the Spirit of God will lead you to make the decisions you need to make. It'll lead you where you need to go. The Spirit of God, the Spirit of God, the Spirit of God. And we've had countless people tell us, but you still have to do and you still have to do. Um, the spirit will be talked about in grave detail tomorrow. Grave detail tomorrow. And I think you'll be, hang on. I want to make sure I sent this off here. Anyway, um, because I think if we are to really move forward in this world as, you know, Christians, we probably should understand who leads the way. We probably should understand who leads the way. We probably should understand who he left to guide us and to expound all things to us. I think we need to probably understand that first before we say anything about what our job is. And then I think you'll realize how little we follow God and his direction, and how much emphasis we place on what we want and call it the Spirit. Trust me and believe me that that was me for a long time. Okay? Okay. Love you guys. Mean it. We have a big show tonight on Too Strong. A big one. If you have anybody that has ever been treated by Boston's Children's Hospital, you will not want to miss this show. If you have had anyone at all, dealing with Boston's Children's Hospital, you will not want to miss the show tonight. Okay, it is disgusting, the stuff we found. It is outright evil, the stuff we found, and it's unbelievable, the stuff we found. Unbelievable. I cannot believe that they're still in practice, much less dealing with children. I cannot understand how that's still going on, but we'll talk about that tonight. To answer your question, no, not feeling better. There's no better. I ignore it better, but I always have something going on with the pain, and I just try not to let it bug me. 8 p.m. Eastern tonight. 8 p.m. on Too Strong. 8 p.m. on Too Strong. And then we'll be back on with the mix tonight as well. If fasting is something that you think you need to do it and have no one know you did it. Don't even mention that you did it. Just do it. Just do it. Just fast. Pick a fast, do it. Fast from meat, fast from something, fast. Whatever you're called to fast from, fast. And don't say a word to anybody. Don't come back here and tell me. Don't come back and tell anyone in the chat. Don't say it to a soul. Fast. Get your distance closed in with God and be done. Okay? Just do it. It's a secret between you and God. It's a private time. It's one-on-one. There will be a Savage Patriots today, yes. I was just going to say that next. We will be having the Savage Patriots at 4:30 Eastern. If you don't follow that channel yet, I would advise you to, if you want to be involved with political and things like that, feel free to Make sure I get that link for you. Now, I will give you some word of caution. The folks I do this podcast with, only one of them, only one of the three of us, only one does not adhere at all to the callings of a Christian life. And so his mouth is not the most pure in his delivery. I just want you to be aware of that. This podcast is a political podcast. I am not any different. I just switch modes in my mind about what the topic is, but I'm not any different. Nor is Jay Lee. He is in school, uh, Bible studying. But Michael is not. He believes in a God of sorts. So I just want you to be aware. If you do come over there, don't come in the chat saying, Michael, your cousin, that's Michael. And I'm working alongside Michael. It's no different than if I were to be in my old profession of being an electrician. After a while, people around me stop cussing. They just found a different way, and that's what I'm hoping happens here. That's all. So if you come, just understand that. Okay? The dynamic is different over there because we're not speaking about the kingdom. We're speaking about the current government and the state of America. So I just want to make sure I put that disclaimer out before you guys go over there and start getting mad at the content and how people are talking. Consider it my mission to reach out across the ways to give them a better way to communicate. It's my goal. It will be on Rumble. I would ask that you sub to the YouTube channel. At least sub. If you don't watch it from there, that's fine. But at least sub it on there, if you can, please. Yes, he could find a different way to express his thoughts, but he does not have a different way to express his thoughts at the moment. He doesn't. He's aware, but he doesn't yet. Okay? Okay. So, again, if you got, in fact, let me grab this one too, because people are going to ask. Let me grab my Rumble too. Okay? Let me grab my Rumble. I just broke 2,000 followers over there. So thank you guys. There's the Rumble channel. Okay, y'all have fun with that one. We will catch up tomorrow when we do the spirit. And again, if you need to fast, go fast, people. Go fast. Do it if you have to. We'll talk about the spirit tomorrow. And I'll see you guys tonight on Too Strong, the mix, and then 4:30 Eastern for the Savage Patriots. I have a full day today. There is no napping. I'm going to have to really tank up on all my supplements today to keep going. So thank you guys again for showing up, for listening. Take it back to the author. Everything I say, make sure you go and deal with it. Okay? Go talk to him. Verify. Sit with him. Ask him whether or not any of this was true. And he'll break it down for you. Okay? He'll break it down for you. Love you guys. Have a grand rest of the day. Don't let the back door hit you on the way out. I'm just kidding. I really appreciate your guys' time and your commitment to listening. It means a lot, a whole lot to me. Yes, it does. And yes, it is chapter 8 for those who are asking the question. It is chapter 8. So read chapter 8 tomorrow or tonight for tomorrow, and then chapter 12 for Friday. Okay? And we'll get into that. I haven't decided next week yet. My inbox is open for suggestions. Send them in. Straight Talk MB at outlook.com. Straight Talk MB at outlook.com. And I'm still working on getting that P.O. box, guys. And as soon as I get it, I'll drop it for you. We'll see you guys tonight. Wisdom calls to you from the streets. So please, 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 please find wisdom. Peace.